Unlock your mental abilities. Introduction. Your mind is not a cage of limits. It is a living field, vast and pliable, waiting for your command. Most people drift through life convinced that their abilities are fixed. I'm not good at math. I'll never be creative. I can't change who I am. These phrases, repeated in silence or aloud, become invisible chains. Yet modern science and ancient wisdom converge on one truth. Your brain is not rigid. It is fluid, dynamic, endlessly rewiring itself in response to what you think, feel, and imagine. The tragedy is that we inherit a culture of labels. A teacher says you're distracted. A parent tells you you're lazy. You whisper to yourself, "I'll never learn this." Each word burrows deep, programming neural circuits that repeat the same destiny. And so you move through life not as who you are, but as who you've been told to be. The worst prison is not the one built of walls, but of unquestioned beliefs. But pause for a moment. Have you ever noticed how quickly you can pick up a new habit or unlearn one when necessity strikes? How does the first clumsy ride on a bicycle transform, almost magically, into effortless balance? That is neuroplasticity, the silent power by which your brain reshapes itself. It means that the story of your life is not carved in stone. It is being written, line by line, by every thought you choose to repeat. Here lies your hidden key, awareness. To unlock your potential, you must first awaken to the fact that the lock is inside you. The moment you observe your own thoughts, you interrupt the autopilot. You create space to decide, will I reinforce the old circuit of doubt, or will I carve a new pathway of confidence, focus, or creativity? Neuroscience shows us that the brain does not distinguish much between what you vividly imagine and what you physically do. Every vision you hold with intensity is already sculpting the architecture of your mind. So the question is no longer, can you change? But what will you choose to change? What hidden faculty within you is waiting to be awakened? More focus, more courage, more imagination. Whatever it is, hold it gently now, as a seed in your awareness. For in the chapters ahead, you will learn how to plant it deep, water it daily, and watch it bloom into the very skill or state of being you thought was impossible. The journey begins by dismantling the first illusion, the myth that your mind has limits. Once you see through that lie, you will never again accept a ceiling over your potential. Chapter 1. The hidden key in your brain. Inside your skull lives a universe more vast than the cities of Earth and more mysterious than the galaxies above. 86 billion neurons pulse and flicker like stars, forming constellations of thought, memory, and possibility. Yet most of us never glimpse this inner cosmos. We move through life as if our minds were cages, repeating the same patterns, the same stories, the same disappointments. We imagine intelligence and talent as gifts handed out at birth, fixed and final, leaving us no choice but to accept our lot. But the truth is more astonishing. Your brain is not a finished product. It is a living instrument, endlessly rewiring itself according to what you feed it. And inside this instrument lies a hidden key, the power to unlock new skills, new ways of feeling, even new versions of yourself. The tragedy is that from childhood, we are told lies about who we are. A teacher labels you distracted. A parent mutters that you're lazy. Society whispers that creativity belongs only to the artist, logic only to the mathematician, leadership only to the gifted few. These voices gather like shadows, and soon you mistake them for truth. You begin to think of your mind as a rigid machine with unchangeable settings. I am bad at math. I will never learn languages. I cannot handle stress. These beliefs become invisible chains, heavier than any iron because you carry them inside your head. You stop trying new things. You stop daring. You live not as who you are, but as who you've been told to be. Imagine someone who once dreamed of painting but gave it up after being told they had no talent, or someone who wanted to speak in public but froze because of one humiliating moment years ago. These stories are not rare. They are everywhere, and they all rest on the same poisoned foundation, the myth of the fixed mind. But ask yourself, if the mind were truly rigid, how could you have learned to walk? Think of those first wobbly steps, the countless falls, the scraped knees. Nothing about walking was natural at first, yet your brain rewired itself until the impossible became effortless. The same happened with reading, with writing, with every skill you now take for granted. The brain is not marble, it is clay. It is not a machine, it is a garden, and every thought, every repetition, every image is a seed planted within it. Science calls this neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to reorganize itself. For centuries, people believed the brain was fixed, slowly deteriorating with age. But modern discoveries overturned that illusion. Stroke victims relearn to speak. Amputees teach their brains to move prosthetics as though they were limbs. Musicians literally reshape their brain matter with practice. And ordinary people, through nothing more than intention and repetition, unlock talents they once thought impossible. The brain is always listening. When you tell yourself, "I am stupid, I can't learn, I'll never change," it obeys, carving deeper grooves of limitation. But when you whisper, "I am capable, I am learning, I am growing," it obeys just the same, laying down new pathways of strength. This is the hidden key: awareness. Most people live on autopilot, repeating thoughts and behaviors without noticing. But the moment you become aware of what you are saying to yourself, you can choose differently. That pause, the instant you notice a thought, becomes the crack in the cage. Through it, light floods in. From there, you can begin small. Instead of rehearsing the phrase, "I'll never change," try, "I am learning to change." Instead of, "I am bad at this," try, "I am practicing this." At first, the new words feel fragile, almost false, but repeat them often enough and the brain rewires around them. Think of a forest path. The more you walk it, the clearer it becomes. The less you walk the old path of self-doubt, the more it fades. Even imagination alone reshapes the brain. Scientists discovered that when people imagined playing the piano, their brains rewired as if they had practiced physically. When athletes visualized training, their performance improved. Your brain does not distinguish much between what you vividly imagine and what you physically do. Imagination, then, is not daydreaming. It is rehearsal for reality. So if you long for more focus, picture yourself calm and steady in the midst of distraction. If you desire confidence, imagine yourself standing tall, speaking with ease. If you crave creativity, see yourself sketching ideas with freedom. Do not just think it, feel it, embody it. Let it saturate your mind until it becomes natural. Here is the liberating truth. You are not condemned by the past. You are not shackled to old labels. The circuits of your brain are not iron rails leading you to a fixed destination. They are rivers, and rivers change course. Every thought you repeat is water carving stone. Every intention is a current shaping the landscape of your mind. The question is no longer whether you can change. The question is, what will you choose to change? To answer that, we must first dismantle the greatest illusion of all, the myth that the mind has limits. Until you see through that lie, you will never know how vast your inner landscape truly is. That is where our journey turns next. Chapter 2. The Myth of Mental Limits. For centuries, people have lived under an invisible spell. A spell so subtle, so pervasive, that it rarely gets questioned. It whispers from the mouths of parents, teachers, leaders, and even our own inner voice. There are limits to your mind. You were born with a fixed measure of ability, and nothing you do will change it. Like a curse, this belief chains us before we even begin. It keeps us small, afraid to stretch, hesitant to try. And worst of all, it feels like the truth. Think back to the classrooms of childhood. How quickly were students sorted into categories? Smart, average, slow. A child who struggled in math was quietly branded as incapable, and that label followed them like a shadow. Another, gifted in sports, was told to avoid books and focus on the field. Year after year, the labels thickened into walls, and those children, now adults, still carry them. The problem is not the struggle itself. Struggle is natural. The problem is the meaning we attach to it. We are told, "You failed because you're not cut out for this," instead of, "You failed because you are still learning." That shift in meaning is the difference between a ceiling and a stepping stone. And because we are rarely given the second message, we grow into adults convinced that our potential has already been measured, weighed, and found wanting. Society reinforces this myth at every turn. Intelligence tests promise to define our capacity with numbers. Job titles tell us how far we can rise. Even age is used as a weapon. You're too old to learn, too late to change, too far behind to catch up. And we believe it. We surrender not because our minds are weak, but because we've been told they are. However, what occurs if the myth is disproved? What occurs if someone disregards it? Such rebels abound in history. For example, Helen Keller, who was born blind and deaf, later became a well-known novelist after learning to read, write, and speak. She was destined to remain silent by society's rules. She did, however, demonstrate that the mind had no boundaries other than those imposed. Science affirms this. Neuroscientists studying neuroplasticity discovered that the brain constantly reshapes itself, even in adulthood. New neurons sprout, new pathways form, old ones fade. In one famous study, London taxi drivers developed enlarged regions of the brain tied to spatial navigation, simply because they had to memorize thousands of city streets. Their brains literally grew to meet the demand. And in stroke patients, regions of the brain once thought dead rerouted themselves, allowing speech and movement to return. If the brain can relearn after trauma, how much more can it adapt in ordinary life? The myth of mental limits collapses in the face of this evidence. What we thought were walls are nothing but doors waiting to be opened. So how do we begin to dismantle this myth in our own lives? First, by catching the moment it speaks. The next time you hear yourself say, "I can't," pause. Ask, is this a fact or a belief? More often than not, it is only a belief, and beliefs can change. Second, reinterpret failure. Instead of seeing mistakes as proof of limits, see them as signals of growth. Every time you stumble, your brain has the chance to rewire. Failure is feedback. Without it, no progress will be possible. Third, practice expansion deliberately. Learn something new, not because it's easy, but because it's difficult. Pick up an instrument, attempt a new language, solve a kind of problem you've never faced before. At first, the mind resists. But in that resistance, the brain begins to build. And finally, Guard against the labels of others. When someone says, "You're not the type," or "You're too old," recognize that they are speaking their belief, not universal truth. You decide who you are becoming, not them. The truth is that there are no fixed ceilings in the mind, only walls of smoke. Each time you question them, they dissolve a little more. Each time you push against them, they reveal themselves as illusions. You were never meant to live small. You were never meant to accept second-hand limits as your destiny. You were meant to grow, to stretch, to discover that what feels impossible today may be natural tomorrow. But to shatter these illusions fully, you must learn to speak the language of the mind itself. For if you try to rewrite your story in the wrong tongue, your brain will not hear you. The next chapter reveals this hidden code, the secret language your mind has been listening to all along. Chapter 3. The secret language of the brain. Imagine landing in a foreign country where everyone speaks a language you do not know. You gesture, you raise your voice, you repeat the same words, but nothing works. Frustration grows because you know what you mean, but your message never lands. This is how most of us live with our own minds. We speak to it in one tongue, but it listens in another. We scold ourselves, command ourselves, plead with ourselves, but nothing changes, not because the mind is deaf, but because we are using the wrong language. From childhood, we are taught that words are tools of thought. We learn definitions, we memorize rules, we repeat sentences. But the brain does not operate like a dictionary. When you tell yourself, "I should be calm," does your body listen? Rarely. When you repeat, "I will not be afraid," does your fear vanish? Number. Because the brain does not respond most strongly to logic or commands. It responds to something far more ancient and powerful: images, emotions, and repetition. This is why you can recall the lyrics of a song you haven't heard in years, but not the content of yesterday's meeting. The song carried rhythm and emotion, while the meeting carried neutral words. This is why a child who once embarrassed themselves in public may carry the memory for decades. The event was branded into their nervous system by the fire of emotion, and this is why affirmations spoken without feeling, flat, mechanical, lifeless, rarely work. Words without emotion are empty shells. The secret language of the brain is experience. It responds to what feels real. Neuroscientists have found that when you imagine a vivid scene, say, sipping coffee in a cafe by the ocean, the same regions of the brain activate as if you were physically there. The brain, in many ways, cannot tell the difference between real and vividly imagined experience. This is why athletes visualize their performance before competition, why musicians mentally rehearse before playing, and why mystics meditate on symbols until they come alive. Mystical traditions knew this long before science. Ancient Egyptians used hieroglyphs not just as writing but as living images, doorways into states of consciousness. Sufi mystics spoke in poetry, weaving images that ignited the heart. Hermetic masters spoke of vibration, declaring that thought clothed in feeling becomes the force that shapes reality. In every case, the message was the same. The brain listens to images and emotions, not just abstract words. So how can you begin to speak this hidden language? First, by choosing images over commands. If you tell yourself, "Relax," your mind shrugs. But if you picture yourself as a mountain, rooted, immovable, vast, the body responds. If you imagine your breath as waves washing tension away, the nervous system obeys. Second, charge your thoughts with emotion. Do not merely whisper, "I am capable." Feel the surge of confidence in your chest. Recall a time when you succeeded. Let the warmth of that memory flood your body. The more emotion you attach, the deeper the impression. Third, Use repetition with intention. One spark rarely lights a fire, but repeated strikes eventually ignite. Each time you return to the image, to the emotion, to the feeling, you carve the path deeper. Over time, the brain begins to adopt it as reality. This is why rituals matter, why daily practices shape destinies. What you repeat becomes the architecture of your mind. Finally, experiment with metaphor. The subconscious adores symbols. Imagine fear as a shadow that dissolves in light. Imagine focus as a laser beam cutting through distraction. These images bypass argument and speak directly to the deeper self. You have been speaking to your mind in the wrong tongue, commanding it with words when it longs for images, drowning it in logic when it listens to emotion. The moment you change the language, you will see the difference. What once felt immovable begins to shift. What once felt impossible begins to soften. You are not powerless. You simply need to learn how to speak so your mind truly hears you. And yet, even if you master this hidden language, another challenge remains. For your mind does not live in isolation. It is constantly shaped by the environment around you, the voices of family, the culture you inhabit, the atmosphere you breathe. The next chapter reveals how to confront and transcend this influence, the battle with the environment. Chapter 4. The Battle with the Environment. From the moment you take your first breath, the environment begins whispering into your mind. Family, culture, teachers, friends, media all become voices shaping your sense of self. At first, you don't notice. You accept their words as truth because as a child, you cannot imagine the world being otherwise. But over time, those whispers become chains. They decide what you think you are capable of, what you believe is possible, what kind of life you deserve, and you carry them into adulthood as if they were your own thoughts, never realizing they were given to you. The weight of the environment is powerful because it is constant. It is not one comment, but 1,000 repeated until they sink below awareness. Money is evil. Dreams are dangerous. Stay in your place. Don't draw attention. These phrases are not laws, but when spoken enough times, they feel as real as gravity, and so you live in a reality not of your choosing, but of your conditioning. Consider the subtle tyranny of expectations. A child told she is average may never dare to stretch beyond the middle. A boy teased for showing emotion may build walls so thick he forgets how to feel. A teenager in a family that mocks ambition may shrink their dreams just to belong. These are not isolated stories. They are the silent epidemic of humanity. People living inside cages they never built but never question. Even science has shown the environment's grip. In the famous Rosenhan experiment, healthy people entered psychiatric hospitals pretending to hear vague voices. Once admitted, they behaved normally. Yet doctors still labeled them with disorders and interpreted every action through that lens. Their environment rewrote their identity. What was false became fact simply because the setting said so. The same happens daily in subtle ways. If the people around you treat you as incapable, your brain begins to believe it. If your culture insists that life is a struggle, your nervous system prepares only for hardship. But here is the liberating truth. The influence of environment is not destiny. It is only suggestion. And suggestion, when recognized, can be refused. History is full of those who broke their chains. Consider Wangari Maathai, a Kenyan woman who lived in a land stripped of trees by deforestation. The environment screamed hopelessness, yet she planted a single tree. That act became a forest, and the forest became a movement of 50 million trees, transforming her country. She did not let her surroundings dictate her, she dictated to her surroundings. Mystics have always known this principle. Hermetic teachings declared, "As within, so without," meaning, if you let the world sculpt your mind, you live as a reflection of its limits. But if you sculpt your inner world, the outer must eventually follow. The direction of influence can be reversed. You are not condemned to be clay. You can become a sculptor. How do you fight this battle? First, through awareness. Begin to notice the phrases you repeat that are not yours. When you hear yourself say, "That's just how things are," pause. Ask, "Who told me this? Do I actually believe it, or was it handed to me?" That question alone can shatter illusions. Second, create sanctuaries of influence. Even a small space matters. A corner filled with books that inspire. A journal where you write truths of your own choosing. A circle of friends who remind you of your strength instead of your weakness. These sanctuaries are like oxygen tents in a polluted atmosphere. They give your spirit the clean air it needs to grow. Third, practice conscious substitution. When the environment feeds you a toxic phrase, "You're too old," "You'll never succeed," respond inwardly with your chosen belief. "It is never too late to expand," or "I am learning success step by step." The brain cannot hold two conflicting truths equally. Repetition of the new gradually overrides the old. Finally, become an environment for others. Just as you were shaped by the voices around you, you can become the shaping voice for someone else. Speak life, speak courage, speak possibility. Each word plants a seed, and sometimes the seeds you plant in others return as forests in yourself. The environment will always try to mold you, but you are not required to submit. You are not a passive product of your surroundings. You are the architect of atmosphere. You are the alchemist who turns poison into medicine. The world will continue to whisper its chains, but you can choose which voices to let in and which to cast out. And when you do, you no longer live as a reflection of your environment. You become the light that transforms it. But even as you reclaim sovereignty from the environment, another battle awaits, one more intimate, more relentless. It is the battle not with voices outside, but with the very flesh you inhabit. To master the mind, you must master the body, and that is where we turn next. Chapter 5. Your body does not rule. You decide. Every morning you wake up inside a vessel of flesh, bone, and breath. This body carries you through the world, but often it seems to have a will of its own. You decide to be calm, yet your heart races with panic. You choose to be disciplined, yet your hand reaches for distraction before you notice. You promise yourself a new habit, yet the old one creeps back with stubborn familiarity. And so you ask, almost in despair, "Am I the master of this body, or its prisoner?" The body remembers more than you think. Every reaction you've repeated, every fear, every craving, every comfort has been etched into its fibers. Like grooves in a record, they replay the same song long after the moment has passed. You resolve to change, but your body resists. It tenses at shadows of past anxiety. It hungers not for nourishment, but for the memory of pleasure. It pulls you back into cycles you swore to escape. This is why so many give up on transformation. They confuse resistance for impossibility. They think, "I tried, but my body wouldn't let me," as if flesh were the true ruler and spirit its servant. Yet this belief is the greatest surrender of all, for it hands over sovereignty to the very habits you long to escape. But the truth is far more empowering. Your body is not your jailer. It is your servant. It may resist, yes, but resistance is not command. Science has shown that the body obeys the mind in profound ways. In studies, people who merely imagined lifting weights grew stronger. Their muscles responded not to movement, but to thought. Stroke patients relearn to walk because the brain finds new pathways to command the same legs. The body adapts because it is clay in the hands of attention. Mystics knew this long before laboratories confirmed it. Yogis taught that breath was the bridge between body and soul, and that by mastering breath, one mastered life itself. Hermetic philosophers saw the body as the instrument of the spirit, a harp that plays the music of consciousness. They all agreed, the body follows the conductor's baton, even if at first it stumbles. So how do you reclaim your role as master? Begin with awareness. The next time your body reacts automatically, grabbing the phone, opening the cupboard, tensing at a harmless thought, pause. Do not condemn it. Simply observe. My body is asking for this. That instant of recognition creates space. You are no longer inside the reaction. You are the witness of it. And the witness holds the power. Then turn to the breath. Breath is not mere air. It is rhythm, command, signal. Slow it and the heart slows. Deepen it and the body softens. Use it like reins to guide a horse. Breathe steadily when fear rises and you tell the body, we are safe. Breathe expansively when fatigue drags you down and you tell the body, we are alive. The body listens more to breath than to words. Next, disrupt the script. The body is a creature of habit, repeating what it has rehearsed. Break the pattern and you remind it who leads. Brush your teeth with the opposite hand. Walk a new route. Eat mindfully what you once consumed blindly. These small acts tell the body, I am awake. I am not enslaved to routine. Each disruption loosens the grip of autopilot. And finally, train the body as you would a loyal animal, firmly, but with patience. If it pulls toward fear, gently redirect. If it lingers in laziness, nudge it forward. Never curse it, for it has carried you faithfully through every trial. Instead, shape it with persistence until its reflexes align with your will. What feels unnatural today can become effortless tomorrow, because the body learns through repetition. Freedom begins not with conquering nations or commanding others, but with mastering the impulses of your own form. You are not flesh dragged by instinct, you are spirit guiding matter. When you remember this, the body ceases to sabotage and begins to serve. It becomes not your tyrant, but your ally. Together, mind and body walk in harmony, carrying you toward the destiny you choose. But even if you master the body, another tyrant haunts you still. One more relentless, more subtle, more feared than flesh itself. Time. To rise beyond your limits, you must learn not to fear time as your enemy, but to embrace it as your hidden ally. That is the threshold we now cross. Chapter 6. Time as ally, not enemy. Time. For most people, it feels like an enemy. It ticks away mercilessly, reminding us of deadlines unmet, dreams deferred, youth fading. We sigh that there are never enough hours in the day. We mourn the years gone, fearing the years ahead. But what if time is not your adversary? What if, instead of a thief, it is a teacher? What if every tick of the clock is not a loss, but an opportunity, a steady rhythm guiding you toward transformation? The greatest illusion of time is that it rushes past us, dragging us helplessly along. We look at the wrinkles forming, the hair graying, the calendar filling, and we despair. I'm running out of time. This belief breeds anxiety. It makes us cling to youth, resent aging, rush through life, or worse, give up before we have truly begun. Think of how often you've said, it's too late. Too late to start that career, too late to learn that skill, too late to change. Entire lives are lived in the shadow of this illusion. A 30-year-old feels ancient, because they compare themselves to a prodigy. A 50-year-old refuses to dream again, thinking the chance has passed. And yet, history laughs at this lie. Consider Grandma Moses, who began painting seriously in her late 70s, or Colonel Sanders, who franchised his famous chicken recipe in his 60s after countless failures, or Nelson Mandela, who emerged from 27 years in prison, not broken, but ready to lead a nation. Time did not defeat them, it refined them. They show us that time is not a barrier, but a crucible. Science, too, dismantles the myth of time as an enemy. Neuroplasticity proves the brain keeps rewiring throughout life. Muscles can strengthen, memory can expand, creativity can bloom, even in later years. The body ages, yes, but the mind remains capable of growth. What matters is not the years behind you, but the attention you give to this present moment. Mystics echo the same truth. The Stoics urged, "Do not fear the passing of years, for the present moment is all you ever possess." The Hermeticists taught that time bends before higher states of consciousness, that in meditation one can step outside its linear grip. Indigenous elders around the world speak of time not as a straight line, but as a circle, where endings and beginnings fold into each other. In every wisdom tradition, time is not tyrant, but ally, not a thief, but a guide. So how do you shift your relationship with time? First, by recognizing its rhythm. Time is not rushing, it is steady. The sun rises, the sun sets. Breath comes in, breath goes out. Trees grow slowly but surely. You too can move with this rhythm if you stop racing against it. Second, reclaim the present. The past is memory. The future is projection, but the present is alive, and it is here where transformation takes root. Every great change happens not in years, but in single moments of decision. When you notice yourself drifting into regret or fear, anchor back. What can I do right now? The smallest step taken in the present has more power than the grandest plan left in the future. Third, measure progress differently. Do not ask, "How long will this take?" Ask, "What rhythm will sustain me?" A tree does not demand to be tall overnight. It grows by seasons, by cycles, by patience. Adopt this rhythm. Practice daily, return steadily. Trust the process. With time as ally, small actions compound into transformations unimaginable at the start. Finally, use time as a refinement. Struggles and delays are not punishment. They are seasoning. Each moment of waiting can deepen your resilience. Each year of effort can sharpen your craft. Time is not withholding your destiny, it is shaping you to carry it. So let the illusion fall away. You are not running out of time. Time is not your jailer. It is your companion, walking with you, offering lessons with every sunrise. Treat it as an ally, and the panic dissolves. Treat it as a teacher, and even waiting becomes sacred. What once felt wasted becomes wisdom. You do not need more time. You need only to see that the time you have is enough if you dare to use it. But there is another hidden factor shaping your destiny. Not the years you've lived, not the environment you've endured, not even the body you command. It is something more subtle, more internal, the way you think. For your mind is not one organ, but 3 brains working together. And until you learn their harmony, your power will remain divided. That is where we turn next. Chapter 7. The 3 brains within you. Inside your body are not 1, but 3 centers of intelligence, 3 brains working together, often in harmony, but sometimes in conflict. The first brain is the one you know best. the mind inside your skull, busy with thoughts, logic, imagination. The second sits in your chest, pulsing with intuition and emotion, translating life into feeling. The third lies deep in your abdomen, rooted in instinct, survival, and the raw drive to keep you alive. Together, these three form a trinity of consciousness. When they are aligned, you feel whole, unstoppable, deeply at peace. When they are divided, you feel torn, scattered, pulled in opposite directions. Most people live in division. The head plans one thing, the heart desires another, and the gut pulls elsewhere. Your mind says, "This job is practical," while your heart whispers, "But I hate it." Your gut warns, "Something feels wrong here," yet your mind dismisses it with logic. This inner civil war drains energy more than any external obstacle. We often think our exhaustion comes from work, from relationships, from stress. But the deeper exhaustion comes from being split inside, from fighting ourselves every day. The tragedy is that modern life trains us to favor the head while silencing the other two. We worship intellect, logic, and analysis. Meanwhile, we mistrust emotion and ignore instinct. But when the heart and gut are silenced, the head becomes tyrannical and foolish. It calculates without compassion. It chases goals without wisdom. It may win arguments but lose meaning. No wonder so many succeed outwardly while feeling hollow within. What old wisdom always understood is now confirmed by science. Researchers refer to the heart's approximately 40,000 neurons as a heart brain because of its capacity for memory, intuition, and brain-to-head communication. More than 100 million neurons, more than the spinal cord, are found in the gut, creating the enteric brain, which controls mood, resiliency, and automatic decision-making in addition to digestion. It is not a metaphor when you remark, "I have a gut feeling." It's biological. Mystics described this trinity long before neuroscience gave it names. Yogic traditions spoke of chakras, the crown of the head, the heart center, and the solar plexus. Taoist masters spoke of the three dantians, reservoirs of energy in the head, chest, and belly. Christian mystics spoke of aligning thought, love, and will. In every culture, the message was clear. Human wholeness comes not from silencing two voices, but from harmonizing all three. So how do you bring these three brains into alignment? Begin by listening. The next time you face a decision, pause. Ask your head, "What do I think?" Then ask your heart, "What do I feel?" Finally, ask your gut, "What do I sense?" At first, the answers may clash. That is natural, but simply hearing each voice begins the work of integration. Second, practice coherence. Breathing deeply into your chest, slow and steady, creates harmony between head and heart. Studies in heart coherence show that this practice reduces stress and heightens clarity. You feel less like three competing voices and more like one unified presence. Third, honor instinct. When your gut warns, do not dismiss it. Ask why. Sometimes it protects you from real danger. Other times, it reflects old fear. The more you listen, the more you learn which signals to trust. Over time, instinct sharpens into guidance rather than noise. Finally, make decisions only when all three are in dialogue. If your head says yes but your heart aches and your gut recoils, pause. Wait until there is at least partial alignment. Better to delay a choice than to betray your inner counsel. You are not one mind, but three. To live ignoring 2/3 of yourself is to limp through life with fragments of your power. But when head, heart, and gut join, you become whole. Logic gains compassion. Emotion gains direction. Instinct gains clarity. You stop fighting yourself and start moving as one force. That is when decisions feel light, when paths open, when destiny unfolds without resistance. Alignment is power, division is defeat. The choice is yours, but alignment requires more than listening. It demands focus. For even if the three brains speak in harmony, without the power of attention, their voice is scattered into noise. The next chapter reveals the true engine of mastery, the secret power of attention. Chapter 8. The Secret Power of Attention. Your life is the sum of where your attention goes. Every achievement, every failure, every joy, every sorrow, all are born from the direction of your gaze. Attention is the current that waters the seeds of your mind. Whatever you feed with attention grows. Whatever you starve of attention fades. This is the hidden power most people never recognize. That attention, more than talent, luck, or even time, is the true architect of destiny. Yet in the modern world, attention is constantly under siege. Notifications, screens, endless noise. Each demands a slice of your focus until your mind feels scattered and exhausted. You sit down to work, but your thoughts drift. You try to listen to a friend, but half your mind scrolls elsewhere. You attempt to meditate, only to be flooded by 1,000 restless thoughts. The tragedy is not that we lack intelligence or creativity. It is that our attention is fractured. A beam of light scattered into many directions loses its power, but concentrate that same light into a laser, and it cuts through steel. The mind works the same way. Scattered attention builds nothing. Focused attention moves mountains. Think of your own life. How many projects lie unfinished, not because you lacked ability, but because your attention was divided? How many conversations ended shallow, not because you lacked care, but because your mind wandered? How many dreams withered, not because they were impossible, but because you could not sustain focus long enough to grow them? Neuroscience confirms the potency of attention. Brain scans show that whatever we focus on strengthens the neural circuits associated with it. Focus on gratitude, and the brain rewires for joy. Focus on worry, and the circuits of anxiety deepen. This is why meditation is transformative. It trains the brain in the discipline of attention, forging new pathways of clarity and calm. Mystical traditions have always placed attention at the heart of transformation. The yogi stares at the flame of a candle until the world dissolves into silence. The monk contemplates a single verse until it becomes a door to revelation. The magician visualizes a symbol until it awakens hidden power. In every case, mastery begins with attention. Without it, the mind is a restless sea. With it, the mind becomes a sword. So how do you reclaim the secret power of attention? Begin with small acts of presence. Choose one task and give it your full attention. Wash the dishes as if the fate of the universe rested on your hands. Listen to a friend as if no other sound existed. Write one sentence with such focus that it feels like carving stone. These small acts build the muscle of attention. Second, practice the art of single-pointed focus. Select an object, a flame, a breath, a word, and return to it whenever the mind wanders. At first, you will drift constantly. That is not failure, it is training. Each return is a push-up for the mind. Over weeks and months, focus lengthens. The beam of your attention sharpens. Third, protect your attention fiercely. Remove distractions that fragment it. Silence unnecessary notifications. Create spaces free of noise. Time is valuable, but attention is priceless. Guard it as you would treasure, for where it goes, your life follows. Fourth, align attention with intention. Do not merely focus randomly. Direct it toward what you wish to grow. Want clarity? Attend to silence. Want creativity? Attend to beauty. Want love. Attend to the presence of those before you. Attention without intention is drift. Attention with intention is power. Attention is the lever of reality. With it, you lift the impossible. Without it, even the possible slips away. You are not powerless, though the world clamors for your focus. You can choose where to shine the beam. You can decide which seeds to water and which weeds to starve. And in that choice lies your freedom. Master attention, and you master the foundation of every other power. But attention alone is not enough. To wield it fully, you must learn to still the restless waves of the mind. For only in silence does attention reveal its deepest strength. That silence is found in a practice as old as humanity itself, meditation. Chapter 9. Meditation without mysteries. The word meditation carries many images. A monk in a cave, motionless for decades. A guru surrounded by incense and chanting. A mystic disappearing into ecstasy beyond the reach of ordinary mortals. For many, these images make meditation seem distant, mysterious, even unattainable. But strip away the robes, the rituals, the exotic names, and what remains is simple. Meditation is the art of returning attention to itself. It is not about escaping life, but about finally entering it fully. The modern mind resists silence. It craves stimulation the way lungs crave air. We fill every gap with noise, music, conversation, scrolling, distraction. The moment we sit still, a storm rises. Thoughts surge, worries echo, memories replay. We fidget, restless, convinced we are failing. This is why so many give up after their first attempt. I can't stop thinking, they say. But that is the great misunderstanding. Meditation is not the absence of thought. It is the recognition of thought without becoming its prisoner. Think of it like watching a river. At first, you are swept along, tumoring in the current of your own mind. Meditation is the moment you climb onto the bank. You still see the water rushing by, the thoughts, the fears, the plans, but you are no longer drowning in them. You are the witness, and the witness is free. Science confirms what mystics have practiced for centuries. Brain scans of long-term meditators show increased activity in regions tied to focus, compassion, and emotional regulation. Stress hormones decrease. The immune system strengthens. Even the structure of the brain changes, thickening in areas linked to memory and learning. Meditation is not wishful thinking. It is physical training for the mind. Ancient traditions, though separated by oceans, all discovered the same core truth. The yogis of India spoke of dhyana, the stillness beyond thought. Buddhist monks taught vipassana, insight born of observing reality as it is. Christian mystics practiced contemplation, waiting in silence before the presence of God. Sufi poets spun in ecstatic dance, not to escape the body, but to bring awareness into every cell. Though their languages differed, the essence was one. Return to presence, and the self dissolves into clarity. How can one meditate in a mystery-free manner? Just sit, breathe, and take note. You don't need anything else. Locate a peaceful area. If you want, close your eyes. Feel your chest rise and fall as you take calm, deep breaths. Let your thoughts come. Return to the breath gently each time they do. The practice is the return. Every return strengthens the mind, much like lifting a weight. If the breath feels too subtle, use another anchor. Stare at a candle flame. Repeat a sacred word. Listen to the hum of silence between sounds. What matters is not the object, but the return. Over time, you will notice space opening between thoughts. The river still flows, but you no longer drown in it. At first, 5 minutes is enough. Consistency matters more than duration. Over weeks, increase the time. 10 minutes, 20, perhaps one day an hour. But never measure your progress by how quiet your mind becomes. Measure it by your growing ability to notice without judgment, to observe without clinging. And remember, meditation does not belong only to the cushion. It belongs everywhere. When you walk, feel the ground beneath your feet. When you eat, taste each bite as if it were the first. When you listen, hear with your whole being. Life itself becomes meditation when attention is steady. Meditation is not an escape. It is not a mystery. It is the simplest act of remembering what you already are. Awareness itself. Beneath the storm of thought lies the sky of presence, vast and unshaken. You do not need to travel to monasteries or chant foreign words to find it. It is here now, waiting behind your breath. Begin with 5 minutes. Begin with 1. But begin. For once you taste the stillness within, you will never again mistake yourself for the storm above. And yet, meditation reveals more than peace. It opens the door to transformation. For once, you learn to step back from thought. You can choose new thoughts. You can rewrite the story of who you are. That is the power we turn to next. The art of rewriting your story. Chapter 10. Rewriting your story. Every life is a story, but most people live a story they did not write. They inherit it from family, culture, childhood, and circumstance. By the time they reach adulthood, the script is already written. What kind of person they are, what kind of life they will have, what kind of limits they must accept. And so they play a role that feels real, but was never theirs to begin with. But what if you could pick up the pen? What if you could step out of the inherited script and write a new chapter for yourself? This is not fantasy. It is the deeper truth of being human. You are not only the actor in your life, you are also the author. The tragedy is that we confuse the past with identity. Because something happened, we believe it defines who we are. A failure becomes, I am a failure. A wound becomes, I am broken. A mistake becomes, I am unworthy. Over time, these judgments harden into a narrative that runs on autopilot. You may not even hear it anymore, but it shapes every choice. You don't apply for opportunities because your story says, that's not for someone like me. You sabotage relationships because your story whispers, you are not lovable. You give up on dreams because your story insists, you'll only fail again. And stories, once believed, are powerful. They bend perception. They filter reality. Two people can face the same situation, but the one who carries the story of I can grow sees a challenge, while the one who carries the story of I am doomed sees proof of defeat. The event is the same, but the story decides the outcome. But here is the key. Stories are not facts. They are interpretations. And interpretations can change. History is full of people who rewrote their narratives. Malcolm X went from prisoner to prophet of freedom. Viktor Frankl, imprisoned in Nazi camps, chose a story of meaning in suffering, a story that allowed him to survive while others gave up hope. Nelson Mandela turned the story of exile into the story of reconciliation. Their circumstances did not write the final draft of their lives, their choice of story did. Even science affirms this. Neuroscience shows that memory is not fixed. It is rewritten each time we recall it. When you remember an event, you are not replaying a video. You are reconstructing it, often altering details based on your current beliefs, which means your past is not set in stone. It is clay, reshaped each time you revisit it. This is why therapy heals, why affirmations shift perception, and why imagination transforms futures. The brain itself is a storyteller, and you can train it to tell a better tale. So how do you rewrite your story? Begin with recognition. Notice the sentences you repeat unconsciously. Write them down. I'm not good enough. I never finish. I always ruin things. See them clearly, not as truth, but as old lines in an old script. Then question them. Ask, is this who I truly am, or is this who I was told to be? Most stories dissolve under the light of inquiry. You'll find they are not destiny, but inherited beliefs. Next, replace them with chosen narratives. Not empty slogans, but living truths. If your old story says, I always fail, your new one can be, every setback has taught me resilience. If it says, I am unworthy of love, your new one can be, I am learning to love and be loved. Repeat them, not mechanically, but with feeling, with imagination, until they take root. Then, embody them. Live as if the new story were true. Want to be confident? Walk into the room as if you belong. Want to be free? Take one small action outside the cage. Each step enacts the new story, giving it flesh and blood. Finally, protect it. Old voices will try to pull you back. Friends may remind you of who you used to be. Family may resist your change. When they do, remember they are reading from the old script. You are writing the new one. Stay faithful to your authorship. You are not condemned by your past. You are not the sum of your mistakes. You are not bound by the labels others gave you. You are the author of your life, and authors can edit, authors can revise, authors can begin new chapters at any moment. The pen is already in your hand. The only question is, what story will you write now? But rewriting your story requires more than words. To make it real, you must harness the most creative force within you, the power of mental creation, where imagination becomes blueprint and vision becomes reality. That is where we now turn. Chapter 11. The Art of Mental Creation. Every invention, every masterpiece, every transformation begins the same way, not in the world, but in the mind. Before the cathedral rises in stone, it lives as an image in the architect's imagination. Before the symphony shakes concert halls, it vibrates in the composer's inner ear. Before the breakthrough idea changes lives, it lingers as a spark within someone daring enough to believe in it. Mental creation is not daydreaming. It is the blueprint of reality. The invisible precedes the visible, and the images you nourish in thought are the seeds that become flesh. Yet most people misuse this gift. They let imagination run untended, painting visions of fear, failure, catastrophe. They rehearse defeat before taking the first step. They imagine conversations going wrong, dreams collapsing, efforts wasted. And the body, faithful servant of the mind, reacts as if these imagined disasters are already real, tightening with anxiety, flooding with stress, draining vitality. This is the tragedy. The very power designed to create possibility becomes the tool of self-sabotage. Think of how often you have lived a situation twice, once in fear before it happened and once in reality. The sleepless nights, the racing thoughts, the imagined disasters that never came. The energy wasted on phantom failures could have been used to build something extraordinary, but without awareness, imagination becomes prison, not liberation. Science reveals why mental creation is so potent. Brain scans show that when you vividly imagine performing an action, lifting weights, playing piano, running a race, the same neural circuits fire as when you actually do it. The brain does not distinguish much between rehearsal and reality. This means your imagination is already training your future. What you picture repeatedly becomes easier to enact because the brain has walked the path before. Mystical traditions spoke of this long ago. Hermetic philosophy declared, "The all is mind, the universe is mental." Meaning, reality itself emerges first as thought. The yogis practiced sankalpa, the setting of intention through vivid inner vision. Mystics across cultures built inner temples in imagination where they rehearsed encounters with the divine. All pointed to the same truth. The invisible workshop of the mind shapes the visible workshop of the world. So, how do you practice the art of mental creation deliberately? Begin with clarity. Do not imagine vaguely. Define what you want to create. A house. Picture its walls, its windows, its warmth. Confidence. Imagine yourself walking into the room tall, steady, speaking with ease. Healing. See your body radiant, strong, whole. The clearer the image, the stronger the blueprint. Next, infuse the image with emotion. Thought without feeling is sketchy. Thought with feeling is sculpture. When you imagine your dream, do not watch it like a distant movie. Step inside it. Feel the joy, the pride, the peace, the gratitude. Let the body believe it is already real. This emotional charge is what convinces the nervous system to rewire, then repeat. Once is a whisper. Repetition is a command. Return to the image daily, even if only for minutes. Each time you do, the groove deepens, the path strengthens, the vision becomes more natural. Eventually, it shifts from someday to this is who I am. Finally, pair imagination with action. Mental creation is not escape, it is preparation. Once the vision feels real inside, take one small step toward it outside. The blueprint guides the builder. The inner rehearsal empowers the outer performance. Together, they move imagination from dream to destiny. You are not powerless. You carry within you the workshop of creation. The question is not whether you are imagining. You are always imagining. The question is, what are you imagining? Fear or faith? Failure or growth? Catastrophe or possibility? Every day, the images you hold in your mind are scripting the architecture of your future. Choose them wisely, for as surely as a seed becomes a tree, the visions you nourish will one day surround you in flesh. But mental creation does not stand alone, for imagination is the brush and emotion is the paint. Without emotion, no vision comes alive. To master creation, you must master the hidden engine of all manifestation, your emotions, and that is where we turn next. Chapter 12. Emotions as the Engine of Manifestation. If imagination is the brush that paints the picture of your future, then emotion is the color that brings it to life. Without emotion, visions remain flat, lifeless sketches. But when charged with feeling, even the simplest thought gains the power to move mountains. Emotion is energy in motion. It is the current that animates the mind's creations, carrying them from possibility into reality. Whether you know it or not, every day your emotions fuel the story of your life. The tragedy is that most people do not harness this engine. They let emotions run untamed, driving them into fear, anger, and despair. They wake up rehearsing yesterday's anxieties, and so they build tomorrow with the same clay. They replay wounds until they become identities. I am anxious, I am powerless, I am unworthy. These are not facts. They are emotions frozen into self-concepts. Worse still, many try to manifest change while carrying emotions that sabotage their vision. They dream of abundance, but hold fear of scarcity. They imagine love, but cling to bitterness. They picture health, but dwell in worry. The heart and mind pull in opposite directions, and the result is stagnation. It is like planting seeds in poisoned soil. No matter how often you water, nothing grows. But when thought and emotion unite, transformation accelerates. Neuroscience shows that strong emotion imprints memory more deeply than neutral experience. That is why you remember where you were on the day of great joy or great tragedy, but forget the hundreds of ordinary afternoons in between. Emotion stamps experience into the nervous system. Mystics across cultures understood this long before science. The Hermeticists declared that desire clothed in feeling shapes matter. Sufi poets sang of ecstasy as a force that dissolves boundaries between self and divine. Christian mystics spoke of the fire of the heart as the true prayer that heaven hears. In all traditions, the message was the same: cold thought does little. Thought ignited by emotion moves worlds. So how do you harness this engine? Begin by identifying your emotional signature. Ask yourself, what is the dominant feeling I carry each day? Is it worry, excitement, gratitude? Whatever it is, that frequency shapes your reality. Awareness is the first step. Next, learn to shift states deliberately. This is not about suppressing emotions, but about redirecting them. If fear arises, breathe into it, acknowledge it, then channel its energy into courage. If anger erupts, instead of lashing out, convert it into determination. Every emotion carries raw energy. It is your choice whether to let it destroy or create. Then pair emotion with vision. When you imagine your goal, do not think of it coldly. Feel it. If you seek abundance, summon gratitude as if it were already yours. If you seek healing, feel relief and wholeness flooding your body. If you seek love, let warmth and openness expand in your chest. These feelings are not fantasies, they are signals, telling the nervous system to align with the vision. Finally, practice gratitude daily. Gratitude is the master emotion, for it tunes the mind to abundance rather than lack. When you give thanks sincerely, even for small things, you generate a vibration that magnetizes more to be grateful for. Gratitude transforms the soil, making it fertile for every other seed you plant. Emotions are not weaknesses to be feared, they are forces to be mastered. Fear, love, joy, grief, they are currents of immense energy flowing through you. Ignore them, and they sweep you into chaos. Harness them, and they become the wind in your sails. Your destiny is not written only by what you think, but by what you feel while you think it. Unite a clear vision with charged emotion, and you unlock the true engine of manifestation. Yet, even with imagination and emotion working together, there is one more step, for visions and feelings without movement remain incomplete. To seal the act of creation, you must embody it in action. Not just any action, but inspired action, aligned with your highest self. That is where our path leads next. Chapter 13. Inspired Action. The bridge between thought and reality. Imagination paints the vision. Emotion charges it with energy. But without action, even the most radiant dream remains a ghost, hovering in the realm of possibility. Action is the bridge between the unseen and the seen, the invisible blueprint and the physical structure. Yet not all action is equal. There is action born of desperation, rushing without direction, and there is action born of inspiration, fluid, aligned, almost effortless, as if the universe itself leans forward to assist. This is inspired action, and it is the missing piece for many seekers who wonder why their visions never become reality. The modern world glorifies busyness. We are taught that constant motion equals progress. We fill calendars, multitask, and exhaust ourselves with endless activity. But motion without alignment is chaos. It is like rowing furiously in the wrong direction. You expend energy, but you move no closer to your destiny. Worse, you may drift further away. Many who practice manifestation fall into the opposite trap. They imagine, they feel, but they never step forward. They wait for the perfect sign, the flawless moment, the guarantee of success. And so they remain dreamers, never builders. Desire accumulates like stagnant water, breeding frustration and doubt. They begin to believe the process doesn't work, when in truth they have not crossed the final bridge. Action. But inspired action is different. It does not arise from fear, obligation, or restlessness. It emerges naturally when vision and emotion align. You know the feeling. An idea flashes, and it carries excitement. A nudge appears, subtle yet persistent. A chance encounter sparks momentum. These are not coincidences. They are signals from the deeper self, the subconscious, even the universe, guiding you toward manifestation. Neuroscience supports this. When the brain rehearses a vision charged with emotion, it begins to filter opportunities differently. The reticular activating system, the brain's inner spotlight, tunes itself to notice resources, connections, and possibilities previously invisible. What seems like luck is often perception widened by intention. Mystics describe the same truth. Once you set an inner alignment, outer doors open. The currents of life bend toward you, but you must walk through. How do you recognize and take inspired action? First, cultivate stillness. Inspiration is a whisper easily drowned by noise. Through meditation, silence, or simply paying attention, you begin to notice the subtle nudges. The thought that repeats, the opportunity that excites, the chance meeting that feels significant. Second, act quickly when inspiration strikes. Delay allows doubt to creep in. The idea that excites you today may wither tomorrow if ignored. Do not wait for the path to be fully lit. Step onto the next stone and the rest will appear. Inspired action often feels like a leap, but it is precisely that leap that shifts reality. Third, trust the scale of action. Inspired steps are not always grand. Sometimes they are small, almost ordinary, a phone call, an email, a walk to a place you feel drawn. Yet small steps compound, creating momentum. Each one tells the universe, I am serious about this vision. The response comes in kind. Fourth, release the obsession with outcome. Inspired action is not about controlling every detail. It is about aligning with the flow. You act not because you guarantee success, but because the action feels alive, right, and necessary. This surrender paradoxically opens more doors than rigid control ever could. Action is the bridge between thought and form. Without it, dreams remain mist. With it, they become flesh. But the key is not more action, it is the right action, inspired action. Action that arises not from fear or pressure, but from alignment with vision and feeling. When you walk that way, the world shifts. Synchronicities multiply. Obstacles dissolve. Life stops feeling like a battle against the current and begins to feel like a dance with it. You are no longer pushing reality. You are co-creating with it. Yet even with imagination, emotion, and action aligned, one more key remains. For true mastery is not simply about creating things, but about expanding into who you are becoming. Beyond goals and dreams lies a greater horizon. The expansive mind, free of limits, free of fear, connected to the infinite. That is where we journey next. And Chapter 14, The Expansive Mind, Living Beyond Limits. There comes a moment in every journey when the seeker realizes that the goal was never the object gained, but the self transformed. You may have imagined new futures, fueled them with emotion, and crossed the bridge of action. Yet the deeper treasure lies not in what you created, but in who you became along the way. The mind that once felt small, cramped, bound by fear, begins to open like a sky clearing after a storm. This is the expansive mind, the realization that you were never limited to begin with. You were only living inside a room whose walls were illusions. The greatest prison is not the one built by iron bars, but the one constructed by belief. From childhood, you are handed boundaries: what you can do, what you cannot, what is possible, what is impossible. Over time, these boundaries become invisible walls in the mind. And so, though the door is open, most never leave the cage. They pace within the same small space, repeating the same routines, fearing to stretch beyond what they've been told. This is why so many feel restless, even in comfort. They have jobs, families, routines, but something inside whispers, there is more. And yet, they suppress it. They shrink to fit the life expected of them, never realizing that the unease they feel is not failure, but calling. The soul longs for expansion, and until it expands, it will never be satisfied with walls, no matter how gilded. But history shows what happens when the mind expands beyond imposed limits. Consider the Wright brothers, who refused to accept that humans were bound to the ground. Their vision of flight stretched imagination itself, and soon humanity lived in the sky. Consider Galileo, who dared to expand thought beyond the dogma of his age, seeing the earth not as the center, but as part of a vast cosmos. Each expansion was resisted, ridiculed, and condemned, yet once the mind sees, it cannot unsee. Expansion is irreversible. Mystical traditions describe the same truth. In Hindu philosophy, the mind expands from the small self, ahamkara, to the vast self, Atman, recognizing its oneness with all. Christian mystics spoke of the mind of Christ, an expansive consciousness rooted in unconditional love. Buddhist teachings invite seekers to dissolve the illusion of separateness, awakening to the boundless field of awareness. Across traditions, the message is one: the true mind is not confined. It is infinite, if only you dare to step beyond the cage. So how do you begin to live in this expansive mind? First, question every limit you assume. When you catch yourself saying, "I can't, I'm too old, too late, not enough," ask, who decided this? Is it fact or belief? Most often, you'll find it is a belief, inherited, not proven. Every time you challenge a boundary, the wall weakens. Second, practice imagining beyond logic. The logical mind sees only what has been. The expansive mind envisions what could be. Let yourself dream absurdly large, not to plan every detail, but to stretch the fabric of possibility. Even if you never reach the exact dream, the act of stretching makes you bigger. Third, place yourself in environments that expand rather than contract you. Books that stretch your thought. People who live with courage. Experiences that push you out of your comfort. Expansion is contagious. When you stand near it, it awakens your own. Fourth, cultivate awe. Look at the stars, listen to great music, and stand before the ocean. Awe dissolves the illusion of smallness and reminds you of the vastness you belong to. The mind naturally expands when touched by wonder. The expansive mind is not about having more, but about being more. It is about breaking the silent ceilings that keep you crawling when you are meant to fly. Once you taste expansion, you cannot go back. The cage loses its power. The walls dissolve. You realize you are not a drop lost in the ocean. You are the ocean itself, condensed into a drop. And when you live this way, life ceases to be survival. It becomes adventure, discovery, unfolding. Yet even the expansive mind has a deeper calling. For beyond growth, beyond manifestation, lies the ultimate realization that your true nature was never limited, never broken, never separate. You are not simply expanding into infinity. You are remembering that you already belong to it. That is the final revelation we now approach. Epilogue, the journey within. From the beginning, this journey was never about becoming someone else. It was about remembering who you already are. Beneath the layers of doubt, beneath the inherited stories, beneath the illusions of limitation, there has always been a deeper self, vast, radiant, unbroken. The world will still try to tell you who you are. It will whisper its chains. You cannot. You are too late. You are not enough. But you now know the truth. Those voices are echoes of old scripts. They do not define you unless you choose to let them. For you have tasted the hidden power within, the ability to focus your attention, to breathe through resistance, to harness imagination, to infuse vision with emotion, to act with inspiration, to expand beyond every false ceiling. You are no longer a prisoner of habit or time. You are the author of your life. Carry this remembrance into every moment. When fear rises, return to breath. When doubt whispers, return to vision. When distraction pulls, return to attention. Each return is power. Each return is freedom. Each return is you choosing to live awake. The mind you once thought small is infinite. The story you once thought fixed is fluid. The life you once thought ordinary is sacred. You are not here to crawl in cages. You are here to walk as creator, as witness, as living proof that the divine spark within is real. So step forward, live expansively, write boldly, create fearlessly, love unconditionally. The world does not need a smaller you. It needs the vastness you have remembered. Final whisper. And whenever you forget, return inward, for within you the journey never ends.